Hi, welcome from Infocom 23. This is Nic Milani at the Epiphan video booth, and we're really excited about today's live show, and it's an interactive show. So if you're joining remotely, get ready, get your video on, throw some pants on, and be prepared to join our great guests and ask questions and interact with us live from the floor. You know, one of the things we've done over the years is really try to understand how video impacts different organizations, and video is no more impactful than in higher education space. And I'm really honored today to be joined by a number of experts from the higher education area. Frank Alaimo is joining me here in the booth from UNLV, along with his counterpart, Andy Borts, who's joining us from UNLV's campus. And Chris Alibaruho is joining us from his hotel room here at Infocom, because unfortunately our studio is about the size of a shoebox, so it's tough to fit more than two of us in here. Frank, good to see you in person. Chris, thanks for joining. Andy, welcome to the show. Let's jump right in and talk about lecture capture on campus. What's the case, and what's impact has it had at UNLV? Frank?
Yeah, I mean, before we even get started here, I don't know how they're going to put two Italians in a booth with handheld microphones and we're not going to drop things because we both talk with our hands, so this should be fun. But anyway, lecture capture is basically everything right now for higher education, because it's not like what caused it or what's the root cause of it, I should say, or what was your history behind it. It's the students want it. So right now it's the most important thing, because if they can't get to class, or if they want to change their classes, or if they just want to remember something that the instructor said earlier in the class, when they go home, they just type in that keyword and there it is. So
yeah, it's great. You know, I think that ability to augment the class, to be able to go back and check things out. I mean, I really wish that I would have had that capability in school, because there's a lot of time you spend just trying to catch up to that information.
Yeah.
You know, Andy, what's your perspective on lecture capture, and how has it impacted your life at UNLV?
Well, you know, when I started here, that was my sole purpose, was to come in and help out with lecture capture, because it was so fresh and new at UNLV. But I think there was a little bit of a more broad perspective, which was help us figure out how our faculty could be excited about it, instead of just saying, well, if I do this, nobody's going to come to my class anymore. So we did a lot of reframing for our faculty and showed the benefits, a lot of which Frank mentioned, especially the parts about giving students that opportunity to go back and review anything they may have missed, because most students don't miss classes intentionally, and we've learned that throughout the course of time. We think that's why, but that's not true at all. They really want to learn, they really want to succeed, and it's really important that in a world now where we have to be accommodating and make sure that people have access to these things, that it's really at the forefront of our mission.
I love it. I think that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, Chris, your perspective from Panopto, I mean, you see a lot of campuses around the world leveraging lecture capture. What do you see as like those top line benefits? The folks that are, you know, at home listening in and trying to determine how to make that case with their administrators, what's the pattern you see?
Well, I think now more than ever before, especially in this post-pandemic world, it is something that is expected. You know, like Frank and Andy said, you know, all these kids that are now coming into higher education, going from grade school. In fact, I had the pleasure of speaking at a commencement for high schoolers, and their freshman year was when the pandemic hit. And so their entire high school career, video has been an integral part of that. And so everything that Frank and Andy said, but the other part of it too, is the equitable aspect of things. So for folks who have learning disabilities or struggle with, you know, learning, you know, if the only way that they can learn is just in a single session in the classroom, adding video and lecture capture is just another level of accommodating those folks in a deeper meaning. And we see that all across the world.
I love that perspective. And you know, it's not just disabilities, it's learning styles, right? We know that there are different styles of learning that exist. We all kind of ingest information in different ways. Sometimes that repetition is really critically important, and it's about meeting students where they are, which I think is really powerful. I also love what you said about this idea that students are native video users. I mean, I'm not a native video user. What's that mean? That means that I've never used the technology as a child, right? But these children that have become into high school or now in college, it's synonymous for them with video, so they've used it their entire life. And I think it's important that we meet folks where they are. I mean, is that the impact that you see, Frank?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the university is a non-traditional campus. Our average student age is 26 years old. So if you look, you know, a mile from my campus is the Strip, right? And what's on the Strip? 24/7 operations, right? So students now, they go to class in the morning, they go to class in the afternoon, they go to class in the evenings. Sometimes they're changing shifts. Sometimes they have an emergency. We all have life problems that happen, and you have to change your shift, right? So they now have that at their disposal. Video now being captured is not just, or I should say, the content now being captured is not just the video, it's audio. Sometimes our instructors don't want to be on camera at all. Sometimes it's a talking head over a PowerPoint, right? And sometimes it's just audio. Sometimes it's a mixture of both. So whatever it is, it's content, right? And the content is what the instructor is trying to get across, and it's what the students are paying for. That's the key here. The students are paying to come to class. So if you don't have good content for them to ingest, they're not happy with it. And they will let you know that.
Absolutely.
So for us, it's a matter of getting the best bang for the student's buck and getting that resource for them to use during class, after class, and heck, even after the semester's over, they can always go back and still look at that stuff and still learn about stuff when they're studying for that final. When they're studying for that final and they thought about something what happened the first month of school, they can remember what it was, but not all of it. They could just go back and read that, watch that video.
That's incredible. I mean, as an engineering student, I had that panic attack 4th year when all of a sudden you were required to remember the stuff you learned first year. Right? It'd be great to have that as a reference. You know, we jumped right into lecture capture. Let's share some perspective about UNLV's campus. I mean, everybody knows Las Vegas probably. You are close to the Strip. And maybe give people a sense of the scope and scale of what you do there on campus.
Yeah, so the campus is 333 acres. We have over 30 classroom buildings, have roughly 210 general purpose classrooms, and another 150 specialized spaces. And specialized spaces are anything from labs to giant Dolby Atmos theaters and golf simulators and all types of stuff. So we're a research institution. So we have all types of things on our campus. It's not just 4 square walls and a teacher talking anymore, right? So of those spaces, in 2017, that's when we dipped our toe into the lecture capture pool, so to speak. And we rolled it out in a few small rooms here and there. And we started to dive into auditoriums. And we were just going to capture the big auditoriums. That was our plan in 2017. Well, 2018 comes around, or 2017, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but it got a little busy for my team, and that's when we brought that young man in, because we couldn't do it ourselves, and he had the experience. Well, I shouldn't say he. The person coming in at the time was going to have the experience, and he won the job. So we brought in, and thankfully we chose the right person, because he has been nothing but an absolute genius since we have started this. But to circle back, what made us really go into this was, like everyone else in 2020, that little thing called COVID.
Right.
So that forced our hand, and our provost charged us with a big, bold plan, and he says, what are we going to do? And I said, well, you need to find me funding, and we're going to make you the best rooms possible.
Cool.
And that's what we did. We rolled out our Rebel Flex program, and the Rebel Flex program, we did it in pilots. So we did a first phase was basically we were going to learn, the instructors were going to learn. We had 0 time to plan and prepare, and it was a guessing game.
Sure.
And then the pilot went so well, we rolled right into the second phase of it, and the second phase of it was basically because of the space Andy's standing in right now. The place that he's at, that's our faculty center. So we were building and developing that just in 2019, and we were just about to finish it when COVID came. And when COVID came, we decided to nuke everything in that lectern and change it for this. So we added cameras, we added ceiling microphones, we duplicated one of our classrooms, Rebel Flex classrooms, in that space to specifically train the instructors on how to roll out the pedagogy that was required for their new Rebel Flex classes. So it was a pretty, I would say, time blessing that it happened the way it happened, because we had the space. A lot of schools don't have the facilities to do that. We were building a faculty center. That faculty center right there is not only used for our trainings, Andy trains them on all other types of pedagogical stuff, but they also have break rooms in there. There's a break room in the room attached to that one. They bring people in from outside vendors to come in and talk to them. So we were lucky enough to have a faculty center. We were lucky enough to turn the technology into that. And from there, the faculty come to us now and they say, can we go for a training? Could you bring more people in? Can you do this sort of thing? So our faculty center's been awesome. Our teaching and learning folks that are with Andy have been awesome. My team has been awesome. We could not have a better way that this rolled out. We're really, really proud of what we got.
That's incredible. And the thing I love, and the reason why I'm so appreciative of both you and Andy being here, is that you're an example for others. And that process, that natural evolution, that rollout, that kind of, crawl, walk, run type evolution is something I'm really excited to unpackage here. But Andy, I want to hear from you a little bit, and I want to hear about how you manage all these spaces as kind of the ultimate Panopto administrator on campus.
Well, since Frank paid such nice compliments earlier, I'm going to rein those in, and I'm going to say, you know, it's impossible to do without Frank and his classroom team. And there's a huge ecosystem for this to make it really happen. But on the team that I work with, I have 4 total people, 3 full-time folks and 1 student worker. And we basically handle anything on the Panopto end that goes into the cloud, because we have instructors who need help with making their videos accessible. They need to be captioned. They want to figure out how to add a slide that maybe they missed during their presentation and not have to go back and re-record the whole video. We also do a lot of work with the appliances themselves after Frank's team installs them. So we're keeping an eye on them, making sure they're updated, making sure they're performing as they should. If someone wants to schedule a recording in advance, we have a form they fill out and we process those requests. We even have somebody, even as we're doing this session right now, who's doing an ad hoc recording, and ultimately will send in a form to have us transfer that recording for him into his course folder. And he's getting ahead for the entire summer. Like the last several days, he's just been recording 3, 4, 5, 6 videos at a time in one classroom with nobody in it, just to get ahead. So we are the forefront for making sure all of that content gets to where it needs to go. And we also help out with the integration with the learning management system, which we're a Canvas campus. So we set it up so that the instructors get the ability to create and the students who are in that course get the ability to view, which has saved a ton of time for people. And we just recently became a Zoom campus, so we also have a Zoom integration that we configure with Panopto to be able to make it work. But there's so many people involved behind the scenes to really make it successful, and to also be there to help out with some of those basic functions that some people don't even know the basics about. And when you get to the part that Frank talks about with the actual in-classroom operation, that's something that we help a lot with the training for. And it just puts a nice ray of light into our eyes whenever those faculty members say, this is a lot easier than I thought it would be. And it makes such a difference, but that's just a collective effort about how Panopto is managed here.
Andy, $1 million question. Did you hit the record button? Are you recording this?
Oh, you wish I did. I figured it would be archived elsewhere.
So, you know, the thing that I love there, let me just make sure I got top line. So we're talking 300 rooms of every type, size, scale, from the Dolby Atmos room that you took me into, which was probably the coolest cinematography experience I've had in a long time, to a PT room where you want to have an overhead camera so you can show massage, to a golf simulator where you're teaching students how to run their own pro shop.
Yep.
Does that give a sense of the complexity and diversity of the rooms?
Yeah, so it's closer to 550
Wow.
actual classrooms, but they're not all on Panopto at the moment. Right now, Andy's got the numbers. I believe we're at 120-ish, somewhere in there, and that's a that's a great portion because of our GP rooms, our general purpose rooms that anyone can schedule. We have about 210 of those, and I would say we're at about close to 100 of those.
Cool.
So more than 50% of our general purpose classes, and that's the key, is the general ones. It's the specialized spaces. The problem with those and being captured is you have to be in this space. You're in a lab, right? You can't swing a golf club from home. I mean, you can, but you can't use the training facility that we have there, right? So what we're doing now is we're actually going back to the faculty, because the faculty who are teaching in the GP spaces are now coming back to their discipline-specific places, and they're saying, hey, I want that in my classroom.
Interesting.
So we built a living ecosystem of rooms, like a catalog, and now we have folks come in and say, hey, we're doing a renovation now. I want that Panopto in my classroom.
Wow.
What do I have to do to get that to work? What boxes do I need? So that's up to myself and Andy and our teams to develop the design for that and to move that in. But to go back to your question, yeah, we have everything from 4 square walls, 4 concrete walls, and a chair for our lecture capture going on, all the way up to physical therapy is using our lecture capture in a couple of their rooms. We have cameras over to plinths that they're using to record. Everything from that to the golf simulator is not recording at the moment, but it is the plans for an upgrade.
Cool.
And we have one-button studios in our library.
Well, that's what I wanted to touch on. I mean, there's a lot more than just lecture capture on campus, too, and that was something that was really impressed upon me, that you're offering other spaces for students and faculty alike to go capture content.
Yeah, we're basically anywhere that we have a computer, we can capture. We can add a camera, but sometimes they don't even need the camera. They just want the content. Sometimes they just want the audio.
Right.
Even the little I/O boxes that you guys have here, we've used those in the past, the capture cards.
Yeah.
Those are what we call quick and dirty in our classrooms.
Sure.
We don't necessarily have a camera in there, but we do have a computer, so we can still record it.
Yeah.
So we have those out all over campus as well.
That's fantastic. And Andy, give me a top line. How many captures are you guys doing in a year?
Oh my goodness. Well, I can kind of give you a progression, because when I got started, maybe we were capturing about 500 total sessions for a semester, which we thought was incredible. And then as we started to go forward, 2019, 2020, and onward, we started to notice that number was really, really skyrocketing. In fact, this last term, we almost scheduled 4,000 sessions.
Wow.
Now, you do the math a little bit, you think there's 3 classes per week, 14 weeks in a semester, sometimes 2 to 3 classes per week. So you're doing between 28 and 42 recordings per week, depending upon or per semester, depending upon how frequently the class goes. But the bottom line is more and more courses want to be recorded, just for the reasons that we've been discussing today. I'm just glad that has resonated with all of our faculty and all of the folks who like to use it, because they finally realize that they have control. If they don't want people to watch their videos right away, they can click a little button and that video won't be available until the instant they say it's ready. And I think once they were instilled that they had complete control of their content, because we're using a content management system, that really made a lot more possibilities come to life and a lot more reasonable accommodations that we could help make for those students and those faculty who needed to use this.
One of the things that I love that you're talking about is that faculty is actually demanding and asking for the technology. And I think we all know as technology managers, oftentimes it feels exactly the opposite when you start. And I think that's a shining example for folks that are listening in to understand that this is something that can become a powerful tool if implemented correctly. So maybe let's transition to best practices. We talked about that journey, starting small, growing the system over time. We've quantified what that looks like. Chris, why don't you come back in and give us perspective from your side as far as what do you see as best practices from Panopto's standpoint?
Well, it's interesting everything that Andy just shared as far as how they were able to roll out Panopto over the years, because that's so in alignment with what we're seeing out there. Starting off small and being able to scale out, that's something that a lot of Panopto institutions do because of the scalability of the platform. And I would also say that something else that Andy mentioned is the integration with the unified communication tool like Zoom, and also being able to integrate with the LMS, in their case, Canvas. But I would say all of those things will work and only be as effective as you are integrated with the hardware that's in the classroom, right? And so one of the best practices, and maybe the folks from UNLV can talk about this, but having a dedicated appliance in the classroom is something that is a must-have. Whenever we talk to leader institutions like UNLV and their success in rolling out, lecture capture, that's one of the key components. Not just using a Podium, desktop computer, but being able to have a dedicated appliance, that's one. And maybe the folks at UNLV can talk about that, from the standpoint of the scalability and how you were able to, go from just a couple of classrooms to, essentially hundreds now, because again, I think that's a really key component so that you're not biting off more than you can chew, and you're also getting buy-in from faculty and things like that.
Yeah, it's an important perspective from as administration goes. Andy, Frank?
For us, it's technically, I am the hardware guy, and Andy is the software guy. He makes the boxes work, right? So for us, it's all about rack space, right? Yeah. So classrooms have infinite rack space, and you have a lectern, and you have to put all your ancillary parts in there, and you got to make it all work. And to me, it's plumbing in the walls, right? So it's basically a network jack to the outside world, goes out to the cloud, someone else's computer, right? So for us, the hardware is without it, you're useless, right? So you need a box in there to do that. So you choose the best boxes you can. And then from the back end, that's when Panopto picks up and takes care of the heavy lifting, because essentially a box is a box, but Panopto does the heavy lifting with all the good stuff that it has.
But let's be specific for folks that are listening in. Like, one of the things in those 500 rooms that like an Epiphan Pearl does is it allows you to deploy the device in any of those rooms, regardless of what technology is there, but have a common video interface back to folks like Andy. So you can have the complexity of your classrooms, and Andy can have the consistency and simplicity of that outbound experience. And that's, I think, one of the things that a lot of folks need to understand from an administrative standpoint. Then from a faculty standpoint, Andy, maybe you can talk to this. This empowers that kind of no-touch experience, right? The addition of an appliance is key to making sure that the faculty doesn't need to interact with anything unless they need to.
You're exactly right. And you know what? Most of the touches on the touch panel that the faculty do for lecture capture is just to make sure that they're still on time, because a lot of their recordings are scheduled in advance. So if they schedule their recordings for 60 minutes, they can take a look with just one touch on the panel and realize they've got 10 minutes to go. Maybe it's time to start wrapping up. But that was the whole goal of this at the start, was if faculty are going to be interested in using something, they want to be as hands-off of it as possible, especially when it comes to the hardware in the space. If we were going to tell them they were going to have to press about 6 different buttons after they scheduled a recording, we probably wouldn't have gotten the amount of interest that we received on it. So having that ability to work in that fashion as a faculty member, I think, is one of the keys to any kind of success with this. Even from an administrative end, though, it's really nice to know that an appliance can reliably run without having any kind of blips here and there. And by the way, quick plug, congratulations to Epiphan for becoming certified Panopto partners. That's awesome. But it really does show that when you have ease of use and you can just basically set it and forget it, it's really, really powerful for all users and all stakeholders who are involved with any kind of project or deployment like this.
I think it's a great perspective, and again, it touches on the different users that are in your communities, and that's what's unique about your institutions, right? You have very different populations to serve, and so serving that in a way that makes it easy, that actually has technology working for them, not the other way around, while freeing up folks like Frank to have the options to put all kinds of technologies in the room but still be managed through a consistent plane.
Yeah, essentially what you need to do is you need to look at your ecosystem. What works at my school is not going to work at another school. You could take the theory behind it, but you have to make it your own.
Right.
So essentially that's what we did that time we had between 2017 and COVID. We were constantly in research mode. We were constantly trying to figure out what's going to work for UNLV. Because our faculty, they're not like most faculty. Our faculty, we have spoiled them over the years. We gave them the best technology they can in their lecterns. We fit those things out. When I give tours and bring people in, they're like, you do what for your faculty? I say, yeah, we take care of our faculty because their job is to come in and teach and leave. They don't need to worry about anything. And so we give them everything we possibly can, plus our own help desk. They call us directly. They don't have to get bounced around to other help desks. So we give them as much white glove service as we can. And then we have guys like Andy on the back end that do the same thing. When they call to put their classes into the system, his team goes in there and does the same thing that we do, is we give them the white glove service they deserve.
Chris, let's talk about that certification program Andy brought up. One of the things that I think we've been working on, and I really appreciate your support personally, as two companies to work together to figure out how do we give our mutual customers confidence that we're working together at the highest level. Can you kind of outline a little bit of that program?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of the things that speaks to, if I can just go back a couple minutes to when Andy mentioned how faculty are reaching out, asking for Panopto to be installed in their classrooms. That to me is the number one telltale sign of an ease of use system that's been implemented at the institution, because what we try to do, and working with a company like Epiphan, what we've done with the Pearl is certify it, which essentially means that we've gone through rigorous Q&A testing, making sure that any customer like UNLV that purchases the Epiphan Pearl doesn't have to worry about whether or not it's going to work seamlessly with Panopto. And so we do all of that work on the back end. Like I said, rigorous testing, working hand in hand with Epiphan's support team, our team, just to make sure that, on an ongoing basis as new releases, firmware, our software, it's just a very tight partnership that, by the way, isn't the case with every other appliance provider out there. And so, with Epiphan and their Panopto certification, being Panopto certified, gives folks like UNLV that peace of mind that they can, plug it in, work with Panopto, and just in the same way the faculty expect it to just be able to work as intended, that's exactly what we do with the certification program.
Well, I really do appreciate that support. And one of the things for viewers to understand that Epiphan uniquely provides is this interoperability. Whether you have rooms with Crestron, Extron, or QSYS, whether you have HDMI cameras, SDI cameras, NDI cameras, or some next acronym we don't know about, our device will work at the edge to bring all those video signals in and then support and control it underneath the Panopto umbrella. And that's really the basic value there that lets this kind of world come together quickly and easily. And the last thing is the cloud tools, right? And actually being able to manage and see in real time. Talk about your support services and how kind of Epiphan's cloud tools will help impact.
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, like I said earlier, I'm the hardware guy. Andy works hand in hand with Panopto. So Andy, circle back a minute, and we talked about, you said there's 4,000 recordings. How many actual replays were there?
Way more than 4,000, I can tell you that, because you think about how many people are in the classes. Some of them have 20 to 200. And the best part about getting to go back and review the data for how many replays we get is we can even see to the 10th of a second, or maybe 10th of a minute, but it's the 10th of something, how far along somebody has gone through the content. And you can even go into that content and find out where are people watching it the most. And that's the cool cue maybe to the instructor that, maybe I should record something else that's supplemental to explain this part a little bit better. Because if people are struggling with this on some kind of assessment and I want to make sure it's clear to them, maybe I need to record something else to make sure it is getting out there a little more clearly. But we've got tens of thousands of views of that kind of content consistently throughout every term.
That's incredible. I love it. By the way, this is the time now where you should be clicking on the link to join us live and start asking questions. The purpose of this is to actually drive interaction. Hear from experts that have been on this journey, that have taken the time. I mean, the technology stack at UNLV is truly an impressive one. I mean, we had a chance to do our first webinar almost a decade ago, I think.
Yeah.
And it was, showing how you could monitor and manage technology at scale across a university. And there's tens of thousands of universities in the world, and everybody's on a different part of that spectrum and that journey. And I just encourage all of you to see UNLV as those experts, as an organization that really has been dedicated to the cause of making technology work for the faculty, for the students, and for the administrators. And a provocation that I'll bring to this is we used to say at Herman Miller that technology should be like air for work. We don't think to breathe. Right. And when you're describing for your faculty the ability to come in and it just happens and it just works, students going to be able to just make it work, I mean, that's a really powerful thing.
Yeah. One of the things I always tell my guys is I said, look, we don't get paid for what we do. We get paid for what we might have to do. Because our faculty come in with these wild ideas. And I got a guy in our office that was like, oh yeah, we could do that. yeah, we can make that happen.
Wow.
Or somebody will come in and ask us, hey, can you guys do this? We're like, oh yeah, we're already doing that. This is how you do it. Because sometimes it's just education. They just don't know what questions to ask.
Well, I'll also share, though, just knowing you and the organization and the way you've built that team, it's also putting an architecture in that's flexible, putting an architecture in that's capable of supporting those ideas. And bravo for building a team that starts with yes. Because that's the key, right? If people are willing to take that iteration, willing to move forward, and I think it starts with that lab, it starts with being able to set up a device, play around. It's one of the big things I'm advising people here at Infocom. They show up, and if they haven't started the journey, I said, just start with one Pearl Mini.
Yeah.
Put it in the studio, get it out of the conceptual realm and get it into the physical realm, and start to actually demo and test, and you can make sure that your faculty and everybody sees the benefits and value of Epiphan plus Panopto.
Yeah, build a sandbox. That's what we always say. Build a sandbox, go in there and beat it up. Change boxes around, have fun with it, mix things up, and when you have a team around you that is willing to do that, nothing can go wrong.
Right.
You could break it and start over. It doesn't matter. If you're not failing, you're not trying, right?
Yeah.
So essentially what you do is you got to do things that's good from an operational standpoint. You have to have a team that's willing to try. You have to have a team that's willing to learn new things. We didn't know what Panopto was a few years ago. We didn't know what lecture capture was a few years ago. We tiptoed into it, and now look at us. Now we got this huge deployment of it, and we have great partners now like Epiphan and like Panopto to get us through anything that we ever need.
Wonderful. Well, let's see. George Burchell's in the background right now, helping to produce the show. And I think this is the part where we want to get some interaction and some guests. I want to say one last thing, by the way, George, as you join here. My key advice for everybody listening, and I think this is critically important, it transcends every industry I've seen. If you're watching in and you see yourself as Andy in this role, or that you're trying to sort out how you're going to do lecture capture, go find Frank. And if you see yourself as Frank, you're the person that manages the technology in the room, and you don't want the headaches of the lecture capture, go find your Andy. Because when you two work together and you partner with a company like Epiphan and Panopto, we're going to make it easy on you. We're going to make it so you can do this at scale, and you're ultimately going to be more successful if you go in with that kind of unified approach together. So that'd be my one big thing that I see as a pattern.
And if you reach out to Nic here and his team, they will put you in touch with us. We will help you guys out. We know how the struggle that if you have a small team and you don't have a larger team and don't have the experience and you have questions, we'll answer questions. It's not anybody's sliced bread. Nobody's hiding their best deal here. We're all in this together when it comes to higher ed. We all help each other out. I mean, it is what it is. But reach out and get your resources together. Ask your questions and then get in touch with the right people.
Amen. And join HETMA.org. It's
Bingo.
An incredible organization.
Right around the corner.
Right around the corner from our booth here. We're very humbled that we're the only certified lecture capture device in their portfolio. You can read the report for yourself. It was a blind evaluation, and it's pretty impactful that we had. But George, let's hop into some questions.
Sure. This is easily my favorite part of the show, and where things get really exciting because we bring in people we don't know. None of this stuff was rehearsed. So what's happening right now is you see that link that was on screen there a minute ago that says visit epiphan.com/live. This is a live caller show. You visit that link, you will be in one of these little boxes on this show talking to all of these smart people. So it's a nice opportunity for anybody out there watching. And it's also incredibly wild for producers like Jeremy and I who are behind the scenes trying to push people around into different spaces. So we'll do a little bit of that in a minute. So if you want to join the show, go to epiphan.com/live. And in the meantime, there's a lot of chatter. So we're streaming to a lot of different platforms right now. And Jeremy, I think we have a question that's ready to go about somebody has asked, you got their attention when you said golf simulator. Someone said, did you mention that you had a golf simulator that you capture? Do you use Panopto for this as well? And are you capturing the room and the simulation? So maybe you could dive a little bit deeper in that, Frank and Andy.
So right now, we do have a PGM major on campus, and we have a PGM facility. We have a 3D motion capture lab that's in there with you wear the suit with the little dots all over your body and all the dots on there, and you look like a stick figure on the wall. Right now, all of that data is being captured through a system called Qualisys. It's not being captured through Panopto. It was a collaboration with Qualisys. They helped design the system with us. What we are moving toward through the next renovation, we will be adding it in the classroom section of that facility. We will be adding lecture capture, more for a lecture standpoint. We haven't thought about the migration of moving it from Qualisys into Panopto at the moment. We're still working through the bits and pieces of how far we're going to go with this. But yes, we do have a facility. We do capture it with Qualisys, but we do not capture it and store it into Panopto as of yet.
It's a pretty impressive spot, though. I mean, I had the good fortune to tour around, and thank you again for taking time on your Saturday. But what a beautiful campus.
We get PGA Tour pros coming into the facility and renting the space. I mean, it's pretty awesome. And plus, our golf team uses it too.
What do we got next, George?
We have another question here. Someone is asking, without naming brands, what did you use before Epiphan? What were the benefits to UNLV? So you covered that a little bit of why you liked Epiphan earlier, but what was before that?
Another appliance.
It was
another piece of hardware.
Yeah, it's another piece of hardware. It's actually a fine hardware. It's a fine piece of hardware. I just like the ability to have more than one option. We all know about the supply chain issue that's going on in the world right now. We all know about support issues that can happen in the world right now. We just like to be able to have options. So the previous appliance that we have, they're still deployed. They're still working fine. Andy's got one by his knees right now in that rack right there. So the hardware that we're currently using is completely fine. We're just looking for other options and other features of those other options.
And if I can mention something, that's something that a lot of our customers give us feedback in that Panopto is flexible in your ability. We don't pigeonhole you into a particular piece of hardware that you have to use. Otherwise, you can't use Panopto.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Lately, Andy and I have been testing random boxes, which has got us to where I am in this booth right now, because it was the best random box I taught or tested, and we're very happy with what we found.
Well,
All I can say is we know how to find the successes in any kind of hardware, and we also know how to break it. And I think Frank was talking about that quite a bit a little bit ago, was, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to try some settings. Don't be afraid to break it, because it's always likely that you can reset it back to a default and start over again. And I think that's what really got us excited about seeing who else was out there. And, it was nice to be able to jump onto the Epiphan bandwagon and get some opportunities to play around with some appliances and really see what we could do here.
Wonderful, wonderful. George, I see
Fantastic.
somebody new on our green room
Yeah,
here.
we have our first brave live caller. So welcome, Nadia. Thanks for joining us today.
No problem.
Where are you joining us from?
I am currently residing in LA.
Fantastic.
Los Angeles.
Fantastic. And what brings you to today, and what do you have a question for our panel?
Well, the question I had specifically kind of integrates with Panopto. I was wondering how that works in regards to a professor coming into a room and wanting to record their lecture. How is that uploaded to Panopto? Is that done automatically? Do they have to enter some type of credential somewhere to identify them so they know, or so the recording knows where to go in terms of folder allocation? How does that work?
So I'm happy to answer that, because that's kind of what I get bombarded with on a daily basis. But what happens basically is, if somebody wants to have their course recorded for an entire term, they will tell us who they are, when they're teaching, where they're teaching, and how often they want the recording to occur. And then what we do on the back end is we actually have a Qualtrics form that the person will fill out with all of that information. That form gets submitted as a ticket and goes straight to my Panopto team, which looks at it and says, okay, we're going to check it against the schedule, make sure that it is indeed the same space they're going to be teaching in. And then our administrators on the Panopto side will actually set up the remote recorder so that we can schedule that for them. We title it, we set it up as recurring if that's what they wish, and that's how that works. Now, having said that, if they are just walking into a classroom and they say, you know what, I want to record today, but I don't want to schedule it in advance, or I forgot to schedule it in advance, then what happens is they come to our Crestron touch panel, which is like right down here in front of me. They'll press a couple of buttons, put a title in for their recording, and they'll just use Panopto just like they would as if the recording had been scheduled in advance. But then after that, they fill out what's called a transfer form. We locate the video for them because it'll be based on what room they taught in. And then from there, we move it to wherever they specify us to move it to. But basically, either process to get that video from point A to point B starts with a form. If you schedule it in advance, though, we automatically configure it so that when that recording is complete, it goes right to your Canvas course without even having to fill out another form to transfer it. So it's a pretty slick process, and took us a while to really get it down on paper, but it has worked so far for the last 5 years, and we've stuck pretty well with it.
One thing worth noting, Nadia, when those are scheduled with the Pearl device, it's going to record those isolated video and audio feeds on the device while also streaming it out to Panopto. So if there is some type of a break in connectivity, you're always going to have that recorded lecture on the device. That's true north as well on it. So there's some redundancy in these workflows that I think are really impactful, because one of the things we haven't talked about that's really important is, once you institute this technology, your organization will become dependent on this technology. Mm-hmm. So, mission critical becomes a word that I like to think about. You can't drop captures, you can't drop events. It needs to be reliable. It needs to be something that every time it works. And I just highlight that as a way that the interaction between Epiphan and Panopto makes that successful. It's also important to note that the only way that you can get to an automated start, or a no-touch solution, is by using that appliance. A lot of folks, I think, make the mistake of trying to run it on a PC in the room. And PCs are very dangerous because they require interaction, they're difficult to manage, and frankly, they introduce air into the system. So it's just something that I see as a pattern, again, with most mature deployments. They tend to go to that appliance. That appliance then helps them automate that experience and ensure that you're getting reliable recordings every time.
So to make sure that I'm understanding this, if it's the professor pre-schedules with you all, you guys set it up on Panopto, and I guess the Epiphan also, so that's automatically recorded for them. They don't necessarily need to touch anything on the Epiphan.
Correct.
That's exactly right. And that's the goal that we had all along, to make sure it was as touch-free as possible. The only thing they would really need to touch is the form that they need to fill out, which is a digital one. So it has really been a very good workflow for us. And so what we do is we take that request and we actually schedule it to the device that's stored in the room they're teaching in. And then that device remembers that, and when it's time to go, it starts and stops automatically and uploads automatically. The instructor doesn't touch a single thing.
Oh, sorry. If they ad hoc it and they just come into the room, that's when they would then need to press record on the Epiphan, so that's recorded on that device as well as on the back end with Panopto. Is that correct?
That is exactly correct, right. That would be a point where they would have to interact with either the touch panel or the appliance, depending upon what the infrastructure of the room looks like.
And let's just take a quick little note right there, because I think it's really important. In the case of UNLV, you've got a full Crestron deployment. That's where we first met each other years ago.
That's right.
A really robust Crestron deployment. In the case of Middle Tennessee State University that runs 300 rooms on Epiphan, not a single control system is in that workflow. In that case, the Pearl Mini is the interface. It has a touchscreen on it. The professor can select which view they want to have. They can type in their information for ad hoc, or start that pre-scheduled, or have it automatically start. You have to think of our devices as an intelligent edge device managed through the cloud, but we honor and handshake with Panopto for those different functions. So as you're managing everything in Panopto, the beauty of this thing is that the Pearl Mini's in the room, negotiating all the different AV configurations, but giving you that consistent record and stream experience.
Yeah, that goes back to what I said earlier, that find what works for your ecosystem. You can put the same boxes in, but you can utilize them in different ways, and still get the same end result.
And the truth is this: there's no one solution across your campus. When I'm in your library, using it as an independent appliance,
correct?
Because you don't want to put a Crestron control system in there. When you're in your Dolby surround room, which by the way, again, amazing. Then you're going to have a full interaction there, and it gives you that flexibility. But it's not a stressful choice. Just realize that all paths lead to yes. And I think that's the real aha here at the point of this entire episode, is to say this can be very easy.
Yeah.
Does that answer your questions, Nadia?
Just one more. So
sure.
The Crestron control panel, or the touch panel, that controls, I'm assuming, the room peripherals as well as what's going to the Epiphan / Panopto. Is that correct?
Exactly.
That's where you can configure your recording setup or start an ad hoc, if you will. So technically, you don't have to touch the Epiphan. If you're doing ad hoc, you can do it with the Crestron touch panel.
Exactly.
Yes.
Or Extron or QSys. We work with everybody. And so if you have a blended campus or you have no control system on campus, we're going to give you that consistent Panopto interface and provide that consistent experience to make sure that part of your tech stack always works. It's like a video layer for your campus.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nadia. In fact, there's one follow-up question around Crestron. Someone's asking how difficult was it to integrate with Crestron? So maybe Frank and Andy, you can jump in there, because obviously you did a lot of work on that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it wasn't very hard at all. The current appliances we're using and the new Epiphan appliances, they all have APIs that work with Crestron control. Plus, being blessed that I am, I have a dynamite programmer on our staff, and he likes to break things and he likes to make programs. So as long as you have access to a good programmer, whether you have them on staff or you pay for one, it's very easy to implement. It's honestly, it's not a secret sauce. It's something that the hardware manufacturers understand that us as end users are going to do, so they bake that into that system already. All we do is pull it out.
Yep. And just so you know, updates, we have newly released QSys modules, so when you go into their marketplace, you can plug that into their workflows. Crestron also just recently updated their interfaces to the Epiphan Pearl lineup. So again, your programmers can take that module, plug it in, and already have some of that pre-canned functionality. And that's part of the validation process that we go through, just like we work with Panopto. We work with Crestron and QSys and the other manufacturers to make sure that these devices are all going to make it easy on you.
Very nice. So I'm looking at the chat here. There's a lot of people talking about scheduling is a very big topic of the conversation. I'm sure it's familiar to everybody on this call, and how streamlined that process needs to be. And then there's also a lot of questions about how we're doing this event here today. So this comes up in every show that we do, because what we do here is a little bit different. We've got live callers coming in. We've got people sitting in a shoebox in Orlando, Florida. And we have people in hotel rooms and all over the place. So if you don't mind, I'll just take a minute and let people know how this is coming together.
That'd be great.
We've got Nic and Frank. They're within arm's reach of each other across the same little space, and they're coming up to. Everybody on this call is joining a Zoom call. That's how easy it is for the contributors. They're just joining a Zoom call. There's nothing special about it. But behind the scenes, we are running Epiphan Connect to be able to extract all of these different video and audio signals as independent video and audio, and bring it into Epiphan Unify. So Connect has this magic tool that extracts all our video sources, and then Unify is our cloud production tool, which we're actually just taking out of private preview this week. So you could create an event like this, and this is a 2-person setup. So I'm monitoring chat, looking at the YouTube and looking at other platforms, and I'm helping a little bit with the production side. And then we have Jeremy, who's based out of Jordan, Amman. And Jeremy is doing switching, and he's adding some graphics to this. So we'll be done here in a couple of minutes here. We'll wrap up. And then you know what's going to happen? Someone's going to say, hey, we should do another event tomorrow morning. Can you guys do that? And we're going to say, yeah, we can do that. Because it's all nimble, it's all cloud-based, we can be anywhere, and it's based on Zoom. So that's a little bit of behind the scenes on how we're doing this today. Jeremy's throwing the live caller graphic up there. If you do want to jump in and ask questions to our smart people here, please do. Otherwise, I don't know, I'll pass it back to you, Nic, if you have any final thoughts you want to.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to share that for those that don't know Epiphan, what we're really trying to create is a very simple kit of parts that creates that video platform for your institution. Okay, whether that's lecture capture or one-button studios, or you want to do live events for your field hockey team, we make a series of devices that are all and not monitored in the cloud, managed in the cloud. And so what we're demonstrating today, and this is important that we demonstrated it, is Jeremy is literally live switching this show from halfway around the world while George is in Ottawa at his home and we're here. And then we just treat this system as like a green room. We're able to come in here and communicate, people can join. When Nadia came on, I was able to see her, I can see Chris, and we can have a conversation. So it's all the technologies people know. So it starts with our edge devices. This is the Pearl Mini that I've been mentioning today. You can see that it has a touchscreen on the top, that it has connectivity on the back for SDI, HDMI, NDI, you name it. It records on its device. It also can create layouts, so picture-in-pictures, multiple views, and ultimately then it can be capturing and streaming that and controlled through other people's control systems. It's a really simple approach, and at $37.50, it's a great price point. I'd also be regretful if I didn't mention to those of you listening, through the end of June, we're going to run a promotion where if you purchase a Pearl Mini for your institution, we'll include a free year of cloud so that you can really understand and see how those management tools, see the power of, you're out to lunch and somebody has a problem, you can literally log in and see what's happening on any one of these video feeds in real time. And because we sit at the intersection of the in-room technology and the out-of-classroom experience, it's the perfect place to invest in that kind of capability, because we are ultimate safety factor to let you know what's actually going out to the world. And so just to share a little bit of what that is and how it looks like, because it's a pretty simple set of tools that we provide, but it has a powerful impact. Did I buy enough time for more questions or anybody else to show up, George?
I think the people are happy now. I think we've delivered. So
awesome.
Let's call it a day on that. This has been really, really great. Thanks to everybody on this call. It's been fantastic.
Any parting thoughts from Chris, Andy, Frank?
I think you hit the nail on the head before. If you're trying to do this, tiptoe your way in there, build a sandbox, have some fun with it. Find your Andy, find your Frank. Reach out to your resources. This isn't hard stuff. It's daunting at first because it's something new that you may not have done, but once you get your hooks into it, you're just going to keep running with it. It's really, really a great tool for your students and faculty to use.
Fantastic. Andy, Chris?
I want to say that, it's like kind of echoing what Frank said. The end result is so rewarding. It really is. And, it's really fun to get to look at the progression of how many people just want to get involved with doing any kind of content capture, even if it's a 2-hour lecture or if they're just doing some kind of 15-minute meeting where they want to have it recorded and archived. Those are the kinds of things that it's great to see the use case branch out, and it's great to get to brainstorm with folks. And even as we were designing the whole RebelFlex concept here for these classrooms, we were at that point where we were like, the faculty input is really going to matter here, because we're trying to talk about active learning, and we're trying to talk about how do we keep students engaged. And content capture, lecture capture, whatever you want to call it, is a huge foundation and a huge step to at least making sure that people have access to the material. So if there are any doubts, if there are any reasons to think, maybe this isn't for us, think again about what the students are getting out of it, especially because the student tuitions really matter when it comes to funding a campus and funding positions and things like that. Catering to them will make all the difference in the world.
I love it. I think it's really impactful. Chris?
Yeah, I would just say, I've been trying not to be smiley too much on the video here, but hearing Andy talk about how there's a rewarding end result here. That's really what we're all about. Panopto has been in existence for over 16 years, and we are purpose built for higher education. And one of our founding components is that ease of use. And so that's what we're really all about. And that's why we partnered with Epiphan and actually had the Pearl be Panopto certified for that very rewarding end result and that ease of use to be able to scale out and meet the needs of your students and your faculty in a very easy way. So it's exciting.
Well, we really appreciate the partnership here at Epiphan, and it's been great to see this unfold over the years. And the space in higher education is so invaluable. And I'll just remind everybody that it may be scary. I know that this industry has been scary over the years. I mean, frankly, a lot of the technology manufacturers have made it tough on people to deploy technology. Come see the Epiphan difference. Come see what we're about. And please let us prove to you that we can make lecture capture on campus easy, and that we'll empower your organization to really engage those students, make it easy on the faculty, and make it really easy on your administrators. Because that's the key. You got to balance all those different areas for it to be successful. And no better proof than UNLV and what you guys have done. So thank you so much, Frank. Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Chris, for joining. And for all those that listened in, by all means, please share this out with your folks, and don't hesitate to reach out to any of us as we help you take that journey as well.